Today is Memorial Day, and I guess this video can constitute as a Memorial Day special, because the story I'm going to talk about in this video dates back to April, but I chose to hold off on talking about it because I feel like uploading a video about this story on Memorial Day, a day that's all about honoring fallen veterans, would drive the point of this video home even further. Anyway, proposed GOP cuts would slash $30 billion from veteran spending, 30 million fewer healthcare visits, fewer staff, increased claims backlog, longer wait times for benefits, almost a $30 billion shortfall for veterans funding. That's the uncertainty that awaits America's veterans, should congressional Republicans succeed in dramatically slashing federal spending, as House Speaker Kevin McCarthy proposed on April 19th. Republicans have promised to reduce funding to fiscal year 2022 levels, which risks a 22% decrease in resources for veterans care and benefits, and many of them are calling for even deeper cuts. Here's what House Republicans' proposed cuts would mean for veterans: reduced veterans' access to care, fewer staff to process claims, longer wait times for benefits, less support for national cemeteries, weakened Veterans Affairs cybersecurity and telehealth services, and a further deteriorated VA infrastructure. VA Secretary McDonough says the cuts could mean a potential reduction of 30 million healthcare visits for veterans, and the loss of over 81,000 VA employees providing benefits to veterans. This is why I'm so tired of Republicans constantly virtue signaling about their supposed care for veterans. Typically, when someone says something critical about this country, someone else, typically a Republican, will say something asinine like, well, veterans fought and died for your freedom in this country, so be thankful you were born here and just shut up. They use the military and veterans in the military as this sort of symbol to justify blind, toxic patriotism where people can't say anything negative about this country, and anyone who may oppose certain actions and decisions carried out by this country are basically doing the verbal equivalent of going up to the grave of a fallen veteran and spitting on it. I remember back when I was in high school, in 11th and 12th grade, there was a kid in my class every morning who would not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance because he had opposition to certain things that were going on in this country. He noticed that kid not standing for the pledge and would oftentimes chastise him for not standing for the pledge and saying shit like, "People died for that flag. You were spitting on the graves of all of those people who died for that piece of cloth." It feels like a lot of these people use veterans as a virtue signal for how much they love this country. Meanwhile, they can't give a fuck less about the veterans who are back here at home who are suffering. Because I never see anything said from the right side of the aisle in regards to taking care of disabled veterans. We should worship veterans for their bravery on the battlefield, but when they come back home and they have limbs blown off, or they're so riddled with mental health issues from their time in the military that they can't sustain a normal life, oh, let's not talk about any of that. From greendoors.org, while only 8% of Americans can claim veteran status, 17% of our homeless population is made up of veterans. Veterans are 50% more likely to become homeless than other Americans due to poverty, lack of support networks, and dismal living conditions in overcrowded or substandard housing. About 1.5 million veterans are considered at risk of homelessness, and research shows that the greatest risk factors for homelessness are lack of support and social isolation after discharge. We send these people out to fight in war, oftentimes pointless wars like Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and I can't imagine the horrific things these people witness while deployed, so it's no wonder they come back home all fucked up, either physically or mentally or both. This country has no problem whatsoever dumping endless money into the military-industrial complex and sending more soldiers out to die. But those soldiers who do survive, who come back home scarred, well, they better pull themselves up by their bootstraps and not expect any help. We'll gladly call you heroes because we want to show off how patriotic we are for the patch of dirt we just so happen to be born on, but we're not going to do anything in regards to your physical and or mental disabilities. I remember watching a horrific video a long time ago where a Vietnam veteran guns down a cop. Now, if you know me, I'm not a fan of the police at all, but still, The screams the cop lets out as he's being shot to death will be forever burned into my mind, and plus he was only like 21 years old, I think, so he was just a rookie when he died. And I guess the cop yelling at him and waving a gun at him triggered a flashback that reminded him of his time in Vietnam, and that prompted him to pull out a rifle and shoot the cop. Turns out that veteran suffered from severe PTSD that I don't think was treated. Now, of course, this doesn't mean I think every mentally disabled veteran is gonna go out and shoot people, but when we're this apathetic about veterans who come back home, riddled with mental health issues, is it any wonder that at least some of them end up doing shit like that? If you're going to send veterans out to be killing machines at the behest of oil companies, the least you can do is ensure they receive the help that they need if they get back home. If these Republican politicians really cared about veterans as much as they say they do, this would be what they're doing. But they don't. Like I said, it's all just a fucking virtue signal. They don't give a shit about veterans besides just throwing them into the war machine to fucking die. If Republicans, both politicians and the voter base, actually cared about these people, they would view them as something more than just something to use to virtue signal about how they unquestionably love this country, and to make people who criticize this country shut up. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Bye-bye.